Herzlich willkommen zur neuen Ausgabe von CROPfm. Der Titel der heutigen Sendung ist Secret Societies und mein Telefongast ist William Kennedy. Und wie immer gibt es den CROPcom, jenen Live-Chat, mit denen sich Hörer dieser Sendung live am Gespräch beteiligen können. CROPfm.mur.at und dann auf CROPcom klicken. Ich sehe diesen Chat hier live im Studio ein und freue mich über Fragen, Anregungen und Kommentare. Secret Societies, so der Titel der heutigen Sendung. Und ab jetzt geht's auf Englisch weiter, denn mein Gast sitzt in Massachusetts. Hi William, can you hear me?
Oh, hello.
Hi. Can you hear me all right, yeah?
I'm having a little trouble hearing you.
All right, let's see, is that better?
Say something else?
Is that now better for you? Can you hear me better?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Yeah? Is that all right
Yeah.
now? Great. So, you're in Massachusetts and you already were on the show once where we talked about Luciferian influences. And today our subject is quite similar. It's secret societies, and you are currently, is the book already out or you're currently preparing to?
My next book, listen, you better call me back. We just have a bad line.
Are you sure? All
yeah,
right.
I'm getting an echo back. I'm just hearing myself.
But I'm afraid, yeah, okay, I can try, yeah.
Yeah, I'm just getting an echo back. I can hardly hear you, and I'm only hearing myself.
Okay.
Okay?
Then let's try, I'll call you back.
Okay, I'll hang up now.
Okay.
Sorry.
William, is it better now? A little bit?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. Technique is not perfect here, but there you go. All right. Before we dive into the subject of secret societies, a lot has happened since you were last on air at on CROPfm. We have a new Pope, Pope Benedict XVI, or Pope Benny, as some call him. Let's start off with your thoughts about this new Pope. He's from Bavaria, which is an interesting connection.
Well, the current Pope we have now, Pope Benedict, I'm really not too fond of him because he was pretty much put in charge of protecting the pedophiles in the Roman Catholic Church. When the pedophile scandal broke in 2002, the last pope was just too old to really handle the affairs directly, so he put Ratzinger in charge of it. Now, it's very bizarre because I have a photograph of the then Cardinal Ratzinger actually slapping the hand of a German reporter who asked him about the priest-pedophile situation. So, Pope Benedict, he slaps reporters like they're naughty schoolboys in a Munich Catholic grammar school.
All right. He's also he was head of an organization within the Vatican, which was formerly known as the Inquisition. Is that correct?
Yeah, it was the Inquisition. The Inquisition never really went away. They just changed the name slightly and stopped using torture on people that we know of, anyway. But a lot of that was a big smokescreen, because what Ratzinger and the last pope were actually running was what you might call a covert satanic ring of perverts. They basically let the perverts take over the Roman Catholic Church after World War II, basically. And the big statistic that's out now by the Dallas Morning Paper is that under the last pope, 2/3 of all bishops and cardinals serving today knowingly transferred pedophile priests from one area of a diocese to another, or internationally, where they went and abused other children again. So 2/3 of the Roman Catholic hierarchy are responsible for this. Of the 115 cardinals who voted for the current pope, most of them were protecting pedophiles themselves. So all of this talk of Pope Benedict being a hardliner or a right-winger or an ultra-Orthodox, it's just a lot of nonsense, because that is just a cover or a front for this very evil organization that he had been running.
So are you saying that the current pope was head of an organization that was actively covering pedophile priests, or were they involved? I just want to be clear here. Do you think that the current pope was himself actively trying to cover up this whole thing?
Oh, yes, definitely so. That's incontrovertible.
Mm-hmm.
There was a document released in the early 1960s which basically told all of the bishops and cardinals in the world to protect pedophile priests and to transfer them out of dioceses in areas in order to save the church any scandal or legal problems. That document has been in effect since 1963, and in 2001, Ratzinger himself said it was still in effect.
Mm-hmm.
So, yes, I am saying that he basically was in charge of the international ring of pedophile priests. And as I said, the Dallas paper gave that statistic that 2/3 of all cardinals and bishops who are in office as we speak knowingly transferred pedophile priests. Cardinal Ratzinger was ultimately the one they were accountable to under the Pope.
Mm-hmm. And what do you think does this mean, that he now has become the successor of and the new Pope?
Hello?
Yeah. What do you think does this mean, that he was elected as the new Pope?
Oh, I'm sorry, I can't hear you, Trick. You faded out again.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, that's a little better.
Okay. What do you think that this means, that he was elected as the new Pope?
This means that it is, forward on with Lucifer's Lodge, which is the name of the cabal in the name of my last book. Just to point something out that people in Europe may not realize is that Bernard Cardinal Law, who was the Roman Catholic Cardinal of Boston, was exposed in 2002 for protecting the pedophiles in his archdiocese, some of whom were practicing Satanists. And a year after that, he was basically forced to resign from office because there were mob scenes outside the cathedral every Sunday when he said Mass. It was like a lynch mob. It was quite an ugly scene, so he resigned. Now, what he did after he resigned is he went to Maryland for about 6 months to a monastery, and then Cardinal Ratzinger, our current Pope, promoted Cardinal Law to be the archpriest of the Basilica of St. Mary Major, which is in the Vatican. Ratzinger made Cardinal Law, who had to leave office in disgrace, he gave him a promotion in the Vatican. Now, to add insult to injury, during the 9 days of mourning at the after Pope John Paul II died, Cardinal Bernard Law said one of the masses on one of the 9 days at the Basilica of St. Mary Major. So what we here in Boston see is Cardinal Bernard Law, who many people here believe should be in prison, specifically in the Massachusetts Framingham State Prison sex offender ward. That's where people here think he should be. And that's not where he is. He is in the Vatican saying Mass at a basilica for the Pope. And that is just, spitting in the face of all the victims. And I'll tell you some of the, I talk to victims of these pedophile priests all the time that Bernard Law protected, and a lot of them live in homeless shelters. They don't live in palaces in, Rome,
Mm. What do you think, what is the direction that the Catholic Church is going to take under this new Pope then?
Oh, it's going to stay on the same course it has been going.
Which is?
Which is it's moving more and more towards modernity. It is moving more and more towards unifying itself with the one world government. Just consider the euro is based on gold. The euro is the only major world currency that's purely based on gold. It is right now the strongest currency in the world. It has beaten the dollar. It has beaten the yen. Now, when you consider that in Europe, the Vatican has the largest single supply of gold in all the world, part of it is ornamental gold, but a great deal of it is gold that they seized and were bribed and got from the Nazis after World War II. Their cache of gold actually backs a great deal of the euro. If they were to dump all their gold on the world market, they could destroy the euro tomorrow.
So you think that the European community actually could get under big pressure from the Vatican?
Oh, I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
So you think that the European community and its financial structures could be put under pressure by the Vatican?
Oh, of course. I mean, that's just an unspoken threat.
All right.
If your currency is based on gold, and the Catholic Church controls all of the fluid gold, the largest supply of fluid gold in Europe, and I'm just not talking about ornamental gold, I'm talking about bricks of gold that they have in the Vatican Bank. Just having that's readily available to sell on the world market is a de facto pressure tactic. Okay.
Now, that leads us directly into our main subject of tonight, which are secret societies, which are also trying to control through various means. How did you dive? What made you turn to the subject in the first place? Why, in your new book, you have a chapter which is included about them, and why are you dealing with secret societies?
With Satanism?
With secret societies. What's your interest?
Oh, secret societies, right. Yeah. Well, let me just explain a little bit about my upcoming book. It's entitled Satanic Crime, A Threat in the New Millennium, and it's being published by Dragon Key Press, and it should be out in a couple of weeks. We're just finalizing everything and getting, the photograph section together. And I do have a big section on Luciferian secret societies in there. Satanic Crime is a pretty interesting book. The first chapter, you can basically see, it's on my webpage, williamhkennedy.com, and it's called Satanism, A Threat in the New Millennium. And it's basically chapter 1 of Satanic Crime. Now, what I do after that is I give case studies of serial killers and murderers who were also Satanists. And in the final chapter, I look at Luciferian secret societies like the Skull and Bones, Bohemian Grove, and Bilderbergers, and show how there are some very strange connections between these criminal satanic serial killers and elitist Luciferian secret societies.
All right, so there's your connection. That those people were connected to... where exactly is the connection to secret societies?
Oh, you want to know the exact connection?
Yeah, how
in the book? Okay,
yeah.
I'll give it to you right now. In 1996, there was a fellow named Marc Dutroux.
Yeah, from Belgium.
Marc Dutroux was a Belgian fellow who was involved in the child slave trade. He was technically an out-of-work electrician who was on a psychiatric disability. He basically got state welfare. He didn't work. Yet he owned 7 houses fully in his name, and in each of these houses he had built dungeons underneath them. Now, Marc Dutroux had a small group of helpers, and what these people would do is they would kidnap children, girls specifically between the ages of, say, 8 and 19, and they would hold them captive in these dungeons, and eventually they would sell them to various sex slave trade child pornographers and for prostitution. Now, Marc Dutroux, when he was arrested in 1996, he wasn't really tried and sent to prison until 2004, he and his group. Now, when they caught him, some girls had gone missing in his area, and they finally tracked it down to him. They discovered in his house, like, thousands of videos with child pornography and photographs, and he had murdered one of his partners, a man named Bernard Weinstein. Now, Bernard Weinstein helped Marc Dutroux kidnap and sell these children. Now, when the police searched Donald Weinstein's personal effects, they found a letter from someone claiming to be a satanic priest who was putting in an order for children for April 30th, which is a satanic holiday. That's one piece of evidence that points out that Marc Dutroux is involved in that form of Satanism. Another thing he is involved with, and this came out after he got arrested, there was a satanic group operating near Dutroux who called the Abraxas. This was near Brussels, and they were arrested, and they too were selling children in sex in child porn rings. And Dutroux claimed to have had connections with them. That's the big thing. Dutroux admitted a lot of what I'm saying. Now, here comes the very, very bizarre part. A judge who was handling the Dutroux case asked for any other victims involved with this to come forward, and 10 women came forward in Brussels, and one of them gave a big list of people who were at these various sex parties that Marc Dutroux and his group of criminals organized, and who these girls, more than one of these girls identified, was King Albert II of Belgium. He was present at these parties where there was pedophilia going on.
Is this on the record?
Quite interesting because right after this came out, the judge who called these 10 women forward was dismissed from the case, and their testimony was thrown out of court by the next judge. A writer in Luxembourg named Jean Nicolas published the court records which he attained in Brussels through a Freedom of Information Act, and he published the list of the people that these 10 girls said were present at these parties. They involved very major players in mostly members of the Bilderberg Group, which is a secret society that started in Holland in 1954. But the primary members that were on this list in the pedophile dossier that Jean Nicolas published were major players in European and American economic and political life. Now, King Albert II of Belgium sued Jean Nicolas to get the book taken off the market, and he actually lost. What the judge did is he made Jean Nicolas put in a little extra thing saying that the king denies these charges. Now, what happened that's really bizarre about Marc Dutroux when he was in prison is he actually escaped once. He was walking out of the prison and he grabbed a gun from a guard, hopped in a car, and drove away. He was captured 3 hours later by some citizens who just recognized him. You know, everyone knew his face. Now, he was taken back to prison, and a few months after that, there was a routine search of the cell area in the prison where he was staying, and they found a handcuff key in a box of salt belonging to Marc Dutroux. And this has made many people in Belgium suspect that the government has been trying to kind of, or I should say, some element of the government in Belgium has been trying to let Marc Dutroux escape as not to reveal more about what he knows.
So, once again, where did you obtain this information? That all
this
those
information I'm giving you?
Yes, those, especially that those high-level peoples were involved in this kind of activity.
Okay, that is from the book The Pedophile Dossier by Jean Nicolas.
Where did he get it from?
He got it from the court records of the 10 girls who came forward in Belgium, in Brussels, during Dutroux's trial and gave testimony.
So he had access to the court records?
Yes, he
directly.
got access to the court records.
All right.
And that was his defense when King Albert II sued him in court. He said, all I did in this book is I'm not slandering anyone. I am merely publishing some public court records that came my way. And it's funny, the judge really could not argue with him because, you know, it was court record.
Did anything happen to those people that were, when this information came out, did anything happen to those people that were involved?
You mean the high-ranking people?
Yes.
No, nothing whatsoever, and that's why there is a very big movement in Belgium right now that's very anti-government. I will send you this information later, and maybe you can post it on your website.
Yeah, please do so. Yeah.
Alexandra Cohen, who is a member of Belgium's parliament, has a document online about the Belgian parliament had a parliamentary inquiry concerning the Dutroux affair, and there were often rumors that King Albert was involved with bizarre sex, and there was a they called them in this rumor mill pink ballets. That's the term they used, King Albert's pink ballets. And these were basically bisexual orgies with children. And Alexandra Cohen, you know, the member of parliament, said that at one of these parliamentary inquiries, the police were asked directly, did they have any evidence that these pink ballets, these orgies, existed? And the police said, yes, they did. They do exist. Now, this was entered into the record of the Parliament of Belgium, but it was not a court record. This was not a trial or sentencing hearing. But it is in the records, the daily log of the Belgian Parliament. So when you link all of these things together, I mean, it draws a big picture that there is a major, major bisexual and perhaps pedophile ring operating amongst the Bilderberg sphere of influence.
Well, all right. And what you're saying then is that all of those organizations, that's now, I mean, bisexual, that's one thing, but pedophilia is another thing, and you think that all those organizations are involved in such activity and it's a central theme there, or?
No, I am not saying they are all involved in such things. What I am trying to point out is that this situation in Belgium specifically warrants far further investigations of these organizations and their practices.
Yeah.
And that is the linchpin organization, the Bilderbergers, because that is the one that all of this stuff has been exposed with via the Marc Dutroux case. I should also point out that, George Bush and George W. Bush and Tony Blair and many members of the Skull and Bones and many members of the Bohemian Grove are also members of the Bilderbergers. These three groups have a lot of mutual members. So that, in that sense, it implicates them all.
Okay, now you mentioned them. It's Skulls and Bones, it's the Bilderberg Group and Bohemian Grove, with a lot of members who are part of two or all three of those. What's the history of those secret societies?
Do you want? I'll start with the Skull and Bones.
Yeah.
The Skull and Bones was founded on the campus of Yale University in 1832, and it was set up by a fellow named Alfonso Russell and a few other people. What had happened was President John Quincy Adams decided that there were too many Freemasons in government jobs in the United States, and he did a purge of Freemasons in positions of power and influence. However, the people at Yale who were part of this elite power structure didn't want to give up that secret society tie. So what they did is one of their members went over to Germany, and it's unclear where he went, but he went to a German university. Some say it's Heidelberg, and some say it's Marburg, but it's unclear which. And he got a charter to start a Masonic-type organization at Yale from this German University Student Society. The Order of the Skull and Bones, as I said, started in 1832, and over the years, the most powerful and influential young people who attended Yale University were asked to join, or the term they use is tapped, to join the Skull and Bones in their third year, their junior year of university. American universities go for 4 years, not for 3 years like European ones. So in their third year, they'd be asked to join the Skull and Bones Society. Now, at any time, there's about 800 living Skull and Bones members. And over the years, Skull and Bones members in the United States have risen to the highest offices of politics, government, and economics. And I will just give you some quick names that you will recognize. President George W. Bush, President George Herbert Walker Bush, Senator John Kerry were all members of the Skull and Bones Society. It's quite interesting. John Kerry's wife, her first husband's father, John Hines, was a member of the Skull and Bones Society. William F. Buckley, who's a famous American commentator, is a member of the Skull and Bones Society, as was Henry Luce, the founder of Time magazine, the big magazine we have here in the United States. All sorts of, Averell Harriman, who was a great American diplomat, Dulles, who founded the CIA, was a Skull and Bones member. So you have this disproportionate amount of people in positions of huge power, all of whom have a Skull and Bones membership. And if they don't have a Skull and Bones membership, someone close to them does. And I'll give you an example, and you may not have heard this over in Europe. Ralph Nader, who ran as a third-party candidate here in the United States, his lawyer, Donald Etna, who he was going to make Attorney General of the United States if he were elected president, was a Skull and Bones member in the same class as George W. Bush. So when you look at even allegedly, radical third-party alternatives, you don't have to look too far to find a Skull and Bonesman.
Well, all right. Someone might say, fine. So those people, they meet together in the tomb, and they help each other out. What's the problem with it?
Okay, well, there's several problems with it. Their headquarters, which is called the Tombs at Yale University, it's a very creepy place, and what I prove in my book is that the Skull and Bones Society is actually a Luciferian satanic organization. And I can prove that by their initiation ceremony, which I give in my book Satanic Crime. And basically, at the final ceremony, the initiates are taken into the tombs, and they are taken by what are called shakers, and these are other students who are dressed up in costumes, and they're dressed as skeletons. They grab the initiate and they pull him forward to a skull, and they are made to drink blood, either it's symbolic blood or real blood, out of the skull. And then they are taken into another room, the inner chamber, and they kneel before three figures. One figure is dressed as Lucifer with horns. One figure is dressed as the Antichrist with a pope's mitre with his foot on a skull. And the third is dressed as a black knight. Now, the initiate touches all three of these figures, and finally the knight dubs them a Knight of the Order of the Skull and Bones and of Eulogia, which is the Greek goddess of eloquence. Now, what we're looking at there is a black mass. It's a counter-initiation, and the three figures are an inversion of the Christian Trinity of Father, Son, and Holy Ghost. In other words, the figure with the horns is Lucifer, the Pope with the mitre is the Antichrist, and the Black Knight is Satan. The goddess Eulogia plays kind of the role of the Virgin Mary. So what we're looking at is a black mass and an inversion of the Roman Catholic sacrament that you get when you're about 13 or 14 called confirmation. So this is an initiation ceremony to work for these Luciferian principles. Now just consider that John Kerry and George W. Bush both kneeled before the devil when they were young men. And they are told never to speak or admit they are members. And both Kerry and Bush were asked about their Skull and Bones membership on an American program called Meet the Press. And they kept their vows. They refused to speak about it. They changed the subject.
And so
they are still keeping their vows to the Skull and Bones Society.
And what do you
They're
think?
not saying, like, look, it's something I belonged to when I was in college. I hardly remember it. No, they refuse to speak about it.
All right. Now, what do you think is the implication of that? I mean, someone in the chat just wrote, so what's the point? The U.S. government is run by Satan or what? I mean, all right. So you're saying that those high-level people are involved in satanic rituals. But how does this influence their agenda? Well, when it comes down to hard politics, what is their agenda?
Okay, let me break it down for you statistically.
Yep.
There are 6 billion people on this planet. 4 billion people live in utter destitution without enough food and without any sort of reliable medical care. 2 billion people on this earth live relatively well with a decent amount of food, shelter, and medical care. Now, out of that 2 billion who live well, the number of people who actually control the resources, the goods, the energy, the politics, the cultural life, out of that 2 billion people, there are maybe 2,000 or 3,000 who actually control the rest of the 6 billion of us. Now, out of that 2,000 or 3,000 people, what I'm trying to point out is that many of them are members of these secret societies, like the Bilderbergers, Skull and Bones, and Bohemian Grove. Okay? And what they are doing, when you look at what's happening politically and economically, I mean, farmers are paid not to grow food while 4 billion people are hungry every night. All sorts of fishermen are paid not to fish when 4 billion people are going hungry every night. What they're doing now, which is even more bizarre, is of the 2 billion of us that are living quite well, here in the United States and Europe, they're outsourcing jobs to the third world. They're trying to take that 2 billion and, render them as destitute as the other 4 billion who live horribly. So their real agenda, is to wage war and cause trouble and, reduce as many of us to poverty and misery as possible. And as I say, if you think of that quick breakdown of that statistic, 6 billion people, 4 billion live in destitution, 2 billion live fairly well, and out of that 2 billion, only 3,000 or 4,000 decide who gets what, and out of that 3,000 or 4,000, they all belong to groups like Skull and Bones, the Bilderbergers, or Bohemian Grove. It becomes quite frightening when you consider the fact that they kneel down to Lucifer when they're young people.
Well, yes, I have to admit it does. So, I mean, why can't they live happy with everyone else? Well, you might say, well, because they're Satanists, but what do they get out of this?
What do they get out of it?
Yes.
They get all the money, all the power, all the resources that this world has to offer them and their families.
But don't they have enough then they can ever spend? I mean,
Well, that's not the way human beings operate. I mean, Bill Gates thinks he's underpaid. Bill Gates thinks he's being ripped off. Bill Gates thinks he's being underpaid. He thinks he should have double what he has. That's not the way human beings think. You can't be too rich or too thin, as someone once said.
All right. Now, so again, what is the agenda? I mean, they want to obviously divide the population of the planet, but at the end, I mean, we just might wipe ourselves out, and then what? So,
well, no, what they're moving towards, and they're doing quite a good job at it at the moment, is forming a one-world economy and one-world government. And not necessarily everyone is going to be allowed to participate in it. When you look at just the overall house of cards that East Asia, Europe, and North America are economically, and how much wealth is controlled in just a few areas, like the London Stock Exchange, the New York Stock Exchange, the Tokyo Stock Exchange, a lot of this wealth is very bottlenecked, and they're again in the control of very, very few people. And what you will see is a consolidation of economic power brokers, politicians, and the military to form some sort of ultimately one world government with a single leader. And that's the direction it's moving anyway. I mean, you don't even, you just have to look at the papers. The mainstream media will tell you this. Everything, you have the EU, which is one united bloc. You have NAFTA, you have East Asia, and we're all tied in together. If Tokyo's banks go, the banks in Austria go. So economically we're tied together. And now when you look at all these wars, like the United States of invading the Middle East and such like that, then you're looking at a one-world police force, okay? And, I say that as a United States citizen. I'm completely and utterly opposed to this horrible war. I wish they'd bring all our troops home here and let people there, there's got to be a better solution than, sending our people over there to fight. But things like that. What this whole war is, it's just forming a one world police force, which will be centrally controlled by a few people. And just consider Afghanistan has just asked for a permanent American military presence in their country. And there again, that's just another example of how we're moving towards this one world police force, probably under the United Nations or whatever you want to call it, a coalition of the willing. you're looking at the consolidation, well, it's already happened, of all economic institutions, banks, the World Bank, the stock market. We're already economically in a one-world government, a one-world economic system. Government speaking, a lot of the things you see are nonsense. For example, you saw how opposed the French were to the war. There's a lot of nonsense going on because French companies were actually supplying the United States Marine Corps with food in the Middle East, in the whole Iraq war and such. So there's a lot of distractionary things like that. That you can't get too caught up in these petty disputes. You got to look at the bigger picture. And the bigger picture, as I say, is this complete consolidation into a world police state in which a single draconian ruler or tyrant will eventually emerge.
How does the war on terror tie in all of this?
Okay, the war on terror, as I said earlier, the war on terror is just a way for this central cabal of, I'll call them Satanists, I don't care, to expand their military power globally. The war on terror is an excuse to promote an international police force. They'll have rapid response units. They're doing it now that go anywhere in the world and land UN troops, which are usually mostly American, and, these bizarre coalitions of the willing. This is just a way to have a single global police force. All this talk of terrorism is just, it's utterly ridiculous. There's lots of films out there. Alex Jones has some good films. It's all a big hoax to create an international police force.
So, you think that 9/11 was staged by those people, or?
I wouldn't say 9/11 was staged. What I would say about 9/11, this is my opinion, I think President Bush and his followers all knew that it was coming. I mean, on August 6, 2001, he had a directive about Al-Qaeda or some terrorist group flying airplanes into the World Trade Center. I think the United States government looked the other way and let it happen. I'm not saying they explicitly did it themselves. Like a bad policeman, they looked the other way while someone was stealing something. I think they were complicit in it. And when you consider, they had like Massawi 2 weeks before 9/11, and two officers were told to stop trailing some of the hijackers a few days before the 9/11. When you add up all the pieces, I think the United States government was complicit in 9/11, although they didn't directly do the attacks.
And who are those terrorists fighting then? I mean, are they aware who they're up against, or do they have a total different story? I mean,
the terrorists themselves?
Yes. Who do they think that they are fighting, in your opinion?
Well, I mean, who knows? You can get anybody to really do anything. As I said, there's 6 billion people on this planet, and if you look around enough, you can get anybody to do anything you want. Out of that many people, if you recruit, if you look anywhere, you will find people who are looking for someone to follow and are looking to die for someone they follow. That's not a problem.
But let me ask a provocative question here, maybe. Maybe it is provocative, I don't know. Could it be that those terrorists are aware of this situation and are aware who are they up against and are consciously fighting Satanists?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the last part of that.
Do you think, could it be that those terrorists are aware that they are fighting Satanists? I mean, they are religious fundamentalists.
It's bizarre. They could have been manipulated into it.
Mm-hmm. So you don't think that those people are consciously doing this, aware of all you just said? And
oh, no. They're probably doing it for specific reasons.
Yeah.
Do you see what I'm saying? Now, I'm not saying the people that flew the planes into the World Trade Center knew that they were doing the bidding of this evil cabal. What I'm saying is this evil cabal manipulated them and let them do it. Their motivations, the terrorist motivations, really don't matter.
Yeah, but that's what I want to get to. Could it be that the terrorists' motivation was to fight those Satanists?
Perhaps. Who knows?
Because we're always saying that we're dealing with religious fanatics, and the religious fanatic could get quite upsteered by a Satanist, couldn't he?
Oh, sure. I mean, there's a lot of possibilities, and I'm not claiming to have all the answers, but when you look at something like 9/11, just in all the work I've done in the few years on mind control and mind research, it's quite an amazing field. I mean, it's so bizarre how easily people can be manipulated.
There was also a question, a chat in this direction. I mean, a lot of people in America, there's a very strong fundamentalist Christian movement in America.
Yes.
And it looks a bit as if some of those people actually actively want to make prophecy true and bring about Armageddon.
Oh, that's very true.
Yeah. President Bush, for example, who you just said has need before the devil, is declaring himself as a Christian. I think a newborn Christian, is that correct?
Yes, a born-again Christian. Claims to be.
Born-again Christian. So he says that he's a born-again Christian, and if you watch if you listen to him, his rhetoric, he actually talks about fight of good against evil. This all sounds like the end times and Armageddon.
Oh, sure. Well, just consider this, that both fundamentalist Christians and Satanists do want Armageddon. They want to see who ultimately will win in their end game battle. So to a certain extent, they're working for the same end of this war. But I should say that George W. Bush, as I say, he kept his vows to the Skull and Bones. He has not renounced it. And to be an evangelical Christian or a fundamentalist Christian, as he claims he is, he would have to renounce the organization because he kneeled before the devil in it. Now, I just want to point out, and a lot of people forget this, from a Christian perspective, and George W. Bush claims to be a Christian, you only have to sell your soul to the devil once in this lifetime. So unless you renounce it, it's good for the rest of your life, so it doesn't matter if you go to church every day.
So the whole Christian thing, let's say, is a cover story, you think? Oh,
yes, it's just a cover. Yeah, it's just another thing they're manipulating, sure.
It wouldn't be so good to declare I'm a Satanist on TV as it is I'm a Christian.
Oh, I mean, it's
bizarrely
PR. Enough, they both kind of want this apocalypse thing to happen.
Yeah.
Like right now.
Yeah. Do you think that this could succeed? I mean, what are the next steps?
Okay, I can't give you an exact date of what's going to happen when.
No, I'm not asking for that.
For many years like this. The point I'm trying to make is that when you look at the world situation as we are now in the new millennium, the world is consolidating towards a one-world government, a one-world economy, a one-world culture, a one-world religion, and we're looking at these different elements starting to fuse together right in the daily papers. Now, what I am saying is the people who are in charge of all of those different things, the economy, politics, culture, and religion, the very tip of the pyramid, are in fact involved with these Luciferian secret societies like the Skull and Bones, Bohemian Grove, and Bilderberg Group, and that, on top of that, the Bilderberg Group has, as I said, recently been implicated in a major satanic pedophile scandal. So I think all of this should be of major concern to people of goodwill everywhere, and what my book, Satanic Crime, will give you is a bird's-eye view of this situation in the 20th century and the new millennium.
Now, let's look back a little bit.
Sure.
obviously those secret societies are very powerful. At least what you are telling me now, it looks like they are the most powerful group of people on Earth, period.
Yes, they are.
Now, Skulls and Bones, you said, was founded about 80 years, 100 years ago, if I remember correctly?
1832.
Okay, so about 150 years ago. But the roots must go back much longer. I mean, something like this is not created in 150 years, it seems to me.
Oh, sure. I mean, as I said earlier, when Alfonso Russell, I believe it was Taft, I'm not sure, Alfonso Taft, I believe, and another fellow named Russell, when they went over to Germany, they got their charter from a pre-existing German secret society that had been, I don't know how old that one was, but they were part of a much older tradition. You're absolutely correct.
And what was this tradition?
Okay, this is a very bizarre tradition of Freemasonry and occultism and Rosicrucianism, which had always been, very popular in Germany and Austria, where you're from. And this especially emerged in the 16 and 1700s, when you had Masonic and Rosicrucian groups who started up chapters at various universities in Germany. And these morphed into these secret societies that still exist to this day. Basically, this is a very, very old occult tradition which has survived in the West since pagan times. Right through Christianity, there's always been elements right up to modern times.
And so this whole group of people and this tradition goes back 2,000 years, or does it predate Christianity?
Well, that's really tough to say. That's going very far back. There is certainly a tradition of occultism that goes back to ancient times, and in the 1600s, when these Masonic Rosicrucian groups formed, they drew from all earlier sources, and they became kind of a confluence for a lot of these different things.
Yeah. We already touched on that in the last show, and I have to ask you again. The whole UFO phenomena and other phenomena, we are looking at very astonishing things happening. How do you think that ties into this situation?
The recent appearance of UFOs and such?
Yes, and also, of course, the obvious cover-up that is going on. Whatever is behind this phenomena, it's not being talked about, really. I mean, that's obvious. And so how does this tie in here?
Well, it's very, very strange. As you know, I'm a big UFOologist, since I was a kid. And
that's why I'm asking you the
question.
question.
And I knew John Mack. And I personally think, and I know we disagree with this, we can disagree but not separate over it. I think a lot of the UFO phenomenon, it has a diabolical origin, and that is my opinion. And I think the government cover-up is to deflect attention off of the fact that, a lot of people that run things are actually in Luciferian groups. And this UFO stuff, I can't give you a complete theory on what it is, but it's definitely being covered up, and I believe it has something to do with these Luciferian secret societies. I can't say exactly what, though. But I would agree the government has a major, major cover-up of UFO evidence here in the United States. I mean, Project Blue Book was just a smokescreen. They didn't cover everything, Yeah. And even President Jimmy Carter thought he saw a UFO. So the government is up to something, and the people who are covering it up are the same people who belong to these secret societies I was talking about earlier, or are controlled by someone who belongs to one of these secret societies.
All right, but do you think, if you say that that the source of the phenomena, and I totally respect your opinion on this, although I don't share it, is evil. Why the cover-up then? Why the cover-up? obviously there is then a connection between them, and whoever is here would back up those people that are in control of the planet. That's a conclusion of what you said, isn't it?
Yes.
And do you think that if you are right, and this is it's the case that we're dealing with a very dark phenomena here, and exclusively a dark phenomena, do you think that this will eventually come out into the open?
Oh, definitely so, one way or another. Whatever this UFO phenomenon is, whether it's diabolical like I think, or whether it's aliens from another planet or another dimension, like my friend John Mack thought, and I got along very well with John Mack. He was a very nice man, and I was very sad that he died so tragically. I would have to say, whatever it is, one thing you pointed out kind of hits the nail on the head. This is being covered up by the same people who are involved in these Luciferian secret societies. So that says to me, whatever it is, the UFO phenomenon, it's evil, and it might be something against the 6 billion of us on this planet. I don't think they're hiding something that will benefit the 6 billion of us. I think they're hiding something that they're going to use against the 6 billion of us.
Yes, but if the source of this phenomena, at least in part, would be something that actually would be benefiting for the 6 billion of us, wouldn't they also cover it up?
That's possible too. They could be putting the lid on something that was meant to help us. I mean, that's another possibility. And as I say, with the UFO phenomenon, and I've studied it for a long, long, long time, I don't have my final conclusion, see it as diabolical, but I'm certainly open, and I will respect other people's opinions. And there is that opinion that they're hiding something that will help us, which is also an evil endeavor.
And I mean, yeah.
Either way, it doesn't make the people that run things look very good.
Yeah. I mean, Eraser points out in the chat, quite right. So let's put it very simple. If those UFOs are all the devils, where are the angels then?
Where are the angels?
Yes. I mean,
well, you have to keep in mind that from a Judeo-Christian Islamic perspective, the people who live on this planet are technically an enemy-occupied territory. For example, Jesus said that the person who ran this planet was called the prince of this world. And he also said, my kingdom is not of this world. So where the angels are from a Christian perspective are in heaven, and they would be waiting for this final situation to erupt.
So you don't think that the other side, which clearly exists, and I'm sure you agree with me on that, is just not getting involved?
Well, who can really say?
I mean, not getting involved. If I say that, not getting involved on this level.
Not on this level. No, they're not at this time.
Mm-hmm. Do you think they ever will?
Yes, I do eventually. But I think it's going to get a lot worse before it gets better.
I was afraid you're going to say that.
Yeah, I know. That's what I'm trying to do really is not scare people, but I'm certainly trying to educate and inform them. And, just the information you've heard from me today, most people, even highly educated, I lived in Europe for 5 years, and I was always amazed at how intelligent just average Europeans are compared to average Americans, how informed they are about history, culture, politics, art. But it always struck me and surprised me that they had absolutely no knowledge about this elite group of people who actually control everything and are interlocked with each other. They would be more apt to get caught up in nationalism and not realize that their own leaders are in cahoots with other world leaders. And that's really what I'm trying to bring out, if nothing else, that even if you reject my religious views, even if you think the Satanism aspects are kind of ridiculous, just consider that everything is consolidating into a one-world government and a one-world economy, And that can be very, very dangerous because now they're incorporating a one-world police force.
Yeah.
Okay, and that's going to mean a stripping of civil liberties to many, many people, which they are doing now. If you want to call the leader who does all this a tyrant, that's fine. If you want to call him the Antichrist, that's fine. It really doesn't matter. He's going to do the same thing.
So we are here on this enemy territory, and we, as you say, we obviously don't get any help until the shit hits the fan.
Really, that's how it works out. Yeah.
Now, so there's only one thing to do. We have to help ourselves. How can we do that?
Well, there are many ways we can help ourselves. Many, many ways. Number one, the first thing and the essential thing we need to do, and this is why I wrote Satanic Crime, we must educate ourselves, and we must educate other people. That is our biggest defense against this sort of thing. And I'll give you two really stunning examples of what people can do. In 1996 in Brussels, this got very little attention. When the judge was removed from the Marc Dutroux case, 300,000 Belgians came out in protest in the city center and all wore white. And it shook the government up so much that like the Attorney General of Belgium resigned. And the other example I will give you is Spain. Spain decided it did not want to participate in this horrible war of imperialism in the Middle East. So one day everyone in Spain just decided to go on strike. No one went to work, and everyone just went outside their houses and walked around and basically shut down the government and economy. This was all peaceful, passive resistance, and ultimately those are the examples we have to look at for the long term. For the short term, though, there again, I'll emphasize it again, we must educate ourselves and educate others. And I will contend that Satanic Crime is a very good place to start.
And this book is out already? Can you already...
It is not out as of yet. It should be out last week in May, first week in June latest.
What do you say to people that say, well, William just scares people to make some bucks?
Well, it's funny. If I just wanted to make some bucks, I could, there are easier ways to make money. And the other thing is I'm really not scaring anyone. I'm just pulling together.
Oh, you're scaring me.
What?
You're scaring me.
Well, you scare easy, I guess.
Well, but...
Well, if you want to live like many people I see here in the United States, they live in a fool's paradise. They live in a Pollyanna la-la land. They're only concerned with the sports scores and who Paris Hilton is, dating. If people want to live in that world, that's fine. I'm not taking that away from them. But for people who want to know about how the dynamics of the world are really working and what we're moving towards and, why their jobs are getting outsourced, and, when they start losing things, they're going to start to ask questions, and that's when they'd want to take a look at a book like mine. And as far as scaring people goes, I want to point out that the research in Satanic Crime, A Threat in the New Millennium, I got from other people, from writers, from newspapers. What I do is I consolidate and compare other people's research and give an analysis of it. So what I'm actually showing people is what's already out there, so they should be scared anyway.
Yeah, I guess so. William, we're coming to the end of our show here today. Just one question that would interest me personally is, was there ever someone that tried to persuade you to cover different topics, or were you threatened?
Many people.
Yes. Okay. Now, were you threatened? You are attacking a lot of powerful people here.
Oh, I've been threatened many times in many, many different ways.
Uh-huh.
Personally, professionally, smear campaigns, anything you can imagine. People, like you just said, have called me a scaremonger. The way I look at it is I'm just re-reporting what's already been reported. like I say, each of my chapters in Satanic Crime, there are 30, 20, 30, 40 footnotes of mainstream articles and books and interviews I did where I got this information. So this stuff's already out there. And people like King Albert, he's already been attacked. So I'm just bringing all of this together, what's already out there. So I don't think I'm as much a target as other people might be.
Yeah. And, well, could be a good sign or a bad sign.
Well, I mean, let me put it this way. The way the world is going, keeping your mouth shut won't help you anymore. Anybody, any of us. I mean, look at the things they're doing. They're putting people out of work, outsourcing their jobs, rendering them to poverty. I mean,
well,
there's big things happening.
Well, I certainly agree on that. Keeping your mouth shut doesn't help anymore.
No, not anymore. It might have 20 or 30 years ago, but, minding your own business, they will still outsource your job.
Yeah. Well, thanks for being on my show tonight. And
very good. Very nice to be here, and I'll be happy to come back anytime.
Yes, just let me know when there are new developments.
Sure, I'll let you know when the book is out, and I'll come on the show again.
All right. Great.
Thank you.
Okay, bye. Gut. Das war William Kennedy. Das Thema, das er da behandelt, ist natürlich zentrales Thema der meisten Verschwörungstheorien, die wir so kennen. Seine Perspektive ist interessant. Ich stimme sicherlich nicht mit allem überein, aber gut, ist auch mal interessant, sowas zu hören, glaube ich. Die nächste Sendung CROPfm findet am 13. Mai statt und zu Gast sein wird Helmut Lammer. Und es geht um extrasolare Planeten und ich werde auch über diese Mikroben fragen, beziehungsweise diese Muster, die auf mögliches Leben hindeuten, die man in der Atmosphäre des Titans gefunden hat, über die aber ein bisschen so der Mantel des Schweigens gebreitet ist. Manche mutmaßen, da glauben einige, dass ein Nobelpreis drinnen ist und sie warten, bis die Medien so richtig drauf einsteigen. Vielleicht wird es ja dann auch alles wieder verheimlicht oder vielleicht stimmt es gar nicht, aber jedenfalls Helmut Lammer werden wir darüber befragen und da bin ich schon sehr gespannt. Wie gesagt, am 13. Mai 2005. Ja, mir bleibt nur mehr mich zu verabschieden. Danke fürs Zuhören und macht es gut.